Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I would be talking about post-LASIK dry eye and its the causes and its management. So, as we all know, that dryness after LASIK is very well known. It is nothing new. But yes, there have been new treatment modalities which we will explore. So, according to the Dry Eye Workup 2 in 2017, dry eye was defined as a multifactorial disease of the ocular surface characterized by the loss of homeostasis of the tear film and accompanied by ocular symptoms, in which tear film instability and hyperosmolarity, ocular surface inflammation, and damage and neurosensory abnormalities play etiological roles, of which hyperosmolarity is the most important. Whenever the quality of the tear is reduced, we will always have symptoms of dry eye. Now, risk factors of dry eye post-LASIK are multifactorial, including low-level, moderate-level, and high-level evidence. Today, we will be focusing on corneal refractive surgery, which comes under a high evidence risk of dry eye. Now, why do we have post-LASIK dry eye? It is one of the most common complications following any refractive surgery. Although signs and symptoms of dry eye are most common in the intermediate post-op period, but we can have a plateau phase within about 3-4 months, and it starts decreasing after 6 to 12 months. But in many patients, it can stay for much longer. Now, prevalence of dry eye symptoms prior to LASIK is estimated to be about 38 to 75%. Immediately after LASIK, 95% of patients report some dry eye symptoms. Dry eye symptoms are reported in as high as 60% of patients 1 month after LASIK. And they can stay also up to 6 to 12 months. Now, risk factors are pre-existing dry eye disease, contact lens use, Asian race, the female sex, ocular disorders such as ocular allergies, deeper ablations, that is very high myopia, hyperopic treatments because we have a smaller eye and we have a bigger flap, thicker LASIK flaps, the flap creation method, whether it is a microkeratome or a femto-LASIK, and also the hinge orientation, whether it is nasal or it is superior. The pathophysiology of dry eye post-LASIK, it is because of corneal afferent nerve damage with resultant hypoesthesia. So once the nerve is damaged, the cycle between the corneal reflex and the brain is broken, and therefore we have an increased vicious cycle of inflammation and dryness. Conjunctival goblet cell loss from the LASIK suction ring, most of with the microkeratome because we have a higher pressure. Abnormal tear distribution from the corneal contour, decreased tear production, and inflammation from altered cytokine levels. Now, in a smile, in LASIK, we have vertical cuts made in the cornea, but while in the smile, we have delamination cuts. This is the corneal renderation of the corneal structures in the cornea. In a LASIK, we have a vertical cut, and you can see all the healthy nerves having cut. In the smile, we have delamination cuts, and only a small vertical cut is made for the main nerve. So, as the number of nerves are much healthier in the smile compared to a LASIK. This is the confocal microscopy showing the structure of nerves is much more preserved in a smile compared to a LASIK. Similarly, there have been studies that compare dry eye post-LASIK in smile as well as LASIK. We see that the tear breakup time, osmolarity, and ocular surface disease index is much less altered in smile compared to a LASIK. Now, symptoms that a person can feel is ocular dryness, pain, burning, photophobia, foreign body sensation, grittiness, and redness. May or may not have any clinical signs, but the patient can have symptoms and disturbance in various visual function because the tear is very important to form a very smooth ocular refracting surface. So if any damage to the tear film, the patient might not enjoy the full advantage of a refractive surgery. Now, diagnosis, the history is the most important part. What is the medical history? Ocular history, including surgical history and contact lens wear. Systemic medications, ocular medication, allergies, what are chief complaints, and whether the patient already has a dysfunctional tear syndrome or a dry eye syndrome. Then we come on to examination like visual acuity, refraction, speed questionnaires like the speed or the OSDI, tear osmolarity, checking for various anti-inflammatory markers like the matrix metalloproteinase 9, and a Schirmer's test 1 and 2. Further tests that can be done are the lid and lashes test to rule out any movement and tear breakup time. Then we can do staining of the cornea and the anterior surface and evaluation and inspection of the meibomian glands. Additional corneal sensations, corneal topography, imaging of the meibomian gland or meibomitis, serum antibody markers, and cultures from the ocular surface. Now, clinical evidence of different diagnostic tests. This shows a patient enlarged meibomian orifices showing a meibomian gland disease. And this is a patient with a severe aqueous deficient dry eye because of staining with fluorescein. This is lissamine green, and this is rose bengal, showing staining of the conjunctiva because of aqueous deficiency dry eye. Another ocular analyzer, 4 minutes to give us a very deep insight into laser interferometry, that it gives the lipid layer thickness, the tear meniscus height, the non-invasive breakup time, meibography, blepharitis, ocular redness classification, pupillometry, white to white measurement, and anterior segmentation. This is a patient with an ocular surface analyzer test. This shows that the NIBUT is almost in the medium range, but the lipid layer is very low. It's in the red zone, while the glands themselves are quite good. So this is a patient that has a lipid layer deficiency. It is very easy to explain to the patient showing these 3 colored graphs. Now the management. Now the goals of the management are to minimize evaporative tear loss, stabilize the tear film, protect ocular surface, repair ocular surface damage, increase lubrication, and enhance the glandular secretion, and also curb inflammation. The most important goal is to maintain the normal hemostasis and get the osmolarity of the tears back to normal. Now, a stepwise approach would be to give a preservative-free artificial tears, punctal plug, topical cyclosporin, autologous serum, so a sterile lens. Artificial tears are very important and are the mainstay for each and every case of dry eye, irrespective of whether it is a mucous layer or the aqueous layer or the lipid layer. We have to consider whether the lubricant has the preservatives, what is the pH, the viscosity, the tonicity, and what kind of electrolytes that the lubricant has, and they are different for different types of dry eye. Punctal plugs are a way of preserving one's tears. We give a punctal plug so that the tears that are produced are not drained away. So it increases the availability of tears. Immunomodulatory agents like a cyclosporin A can be used pre-operatively and post-operatively to decrease lymphocytes and cytokine levels, thereby breaking the cycle of inflammation and dryness. Autologous serum using the patient's own serum mixed with sterile solution, sterile saline can be used. These are also said to have a very good amount of anti-inflammatory properties, and they reduce dry eye. Scleral lenses are a very good option. They keep the cornea bathed in a continuous irrigation of a reservoir of tears, thereby creating a very healthy environment for the cornea. Other treatment modalities that have come up is the very intense pulse of light is given to the cornea, to the meibomian glands, especially the lower lids, that help in people who have good meibomian glands but low lipid thickness here. So this is a short video showing how we can give the eyes and bursts of light are given like this. The patient feels comfort immediately, and it is given in 3 separate settings. Oral antibiotics like tetracyclines can be used to reduce inflammation. Emerging treatment include a topical nerve growth factor that also is said to decrease inflammation. And the drugs currently under investigation are a diclofenac, tetrasodium, and a sodium hyaluronate combination, and insulin-like growth factor. To prevent dryness post-LASIK, we have to go to the pre-operative settings and check and find the appropriate candidates and treat it before we take the person up for a refractive surgery. So to summarize, dry eye is a very common complication after refractive surgery, and patient who will have an uncomplicated surgery might not be as happy as you think. So the candidates for the surgery should be chosen very well by doing a thorough pre-operative examination and treatment post-operative. Thank you.